A 6-year-old boy was physically thrown out of his elementary school for being homeless, while 30 leather-clad bikers watched from across the street. Before we dive into this story, make sure to smash subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The morning fog hung thick over Riverside Elementary as Marcus approached the familiar iron gates. His stomach cramped from hunger. He'd found half a sandwich in the park trash can yesterday, but that was 18 hours ago. The 6-year-old had woken up at 4 a.m. on his cardboard bed behind the grocery store, used the gas station bathroom to wash his face and hands, and carefully combed his hair with a broken comb he'd found last week. His backpack, held together with duct tape he'd peeled off a dumpster, contained his most precious possessions: 3 pencils worn down to nubs, homework papers he'd protected from the rain, and a photo of his mother wrapped in plastic from a sandwich bag. He'd spent 2 hours last night doing math problems under the yellow glow of a streetlight, shooing away mosquitoes and ignoring the drunk men who stumbled past. Principal Henderson stood at the entrance like a guardian blocking the gates of heaven. Her pressed suit and perfect makeup were a stark contrast to Marcus's dirty clothes and worn shoes with holes that let in the morning dew. She'd been waiting for him. "I thought I made myself clear yesterday," she said, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "This institution has standards." "But Mrs. Henderson, I did all my homework," Marcus said quietly, reaching into his backpack with hands that shook from more than just the cold. "Look, I got every math problem right. Mrs. Thompson said I might be gifted." "That's not the issue, and you know it. Parents pay good money to send their children here. They don't want their kids exposed to your situation." "I don't have any diseases," Marcus said, confusion in his young eyes. "I wash every day, I promise. Sometimes the library lets me use their soap." The principal's face twisted with disgust. "You smell, Marcus. You're dirty. You're a disruption. Just this morning, Madison's mother called to say her daughter had nightmares about the homeless boy at school." "I never even talked to Madison," Marcus whispered, tears starting to form. "I sit in the back and don't bother anyone." "Your very presence bothers people. Now leave before I call the police." Marcus stood his ground with a courage that should have melted the coldest heart. "My mom said education is the only way out. She made me promise to go to school every day. I'm keeping my promise." "Your mother is dead," Principal Henderson said cruelly. "Dead people's promises don't matter." That's when she grabbed Marcus by his thin shoulder, her manicured nails digging in as she physically pushed him away from the entrance. The boy stumbled, his worn shoes slipping on the wet concrete. He fell hard, his homework scattering, across the sidewalk, caught by the morning breeze. Across the street, 30 members of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club had stopped at a red light. They were heading to their annual charity ride for the Children's Hospital, but what they witnessed changed everything. Bear, their chapter president, was a mountain of a man. 6'5", 300 pounds of muscle covered in tattoos that told stories of pain and redemption. He removed his helmet slowly, his scarred hands steady despite the rage building in his chest. His eyes, gray as storm clouds, never left the scene unfolding at the school. "Boss, did that woman just assault a kid?" asked Hammer, his sergeant-at-arms who'd earned his name not from violence, but from his previous career as a judge who hammered down on those who hurt children. "She did," Bear confirmed, his voice carrying the dangerous calm of a man who'd learned to control his temper in prison. "And look, not one person is helping him." Parents in expensive cars drove past Marcus as he crawled on the ground, gathering his homework. Some rolled up their windows. Others actually laughed, pointing at the little bum scrambling for his papers. A math worksheet landed in a puddle, the problems Marcus had worked so hard on dissolving into illegible smears. Tank, the club's enforcer, growled from his bike. "That principal needs a lesson in manners." "Easy, brother," Bear said, though his knuckles were white as he gripped his handlebars. "We do this right." Marcus managed to save most of his homework, though several pages were ruined. He stood up, muddy water dripping from his papers, and approached the gate again. The principal blocked him with her body. "I'm calling the police right now," she threatened, pulling out her phone. "Please," Marcus begged. "I'll be extra quiet. I won't eat lunch so nobody sees me. I'll hide during recess. Just please let me learn." "Security!" Principal Henderson yelled. "We have a trespasser!" 2 security guards emerged from the building, heading toward the small boy. That's when the traffic light turned green, but not a single motorcycle moved. Bear held up his fist, the universal signal for his club to hold position. 30 engines idled, their rumble like distant thunder. "This is wrong," said Phoenix, the only woman in the group, her voice carrying over the engine noise. She'd been a teacher before her school fired her for refusing to falsify test scores. "That baby just wants to learn." Bear made a decision that would change countless lives. He kickstanded his Harley and swung his leg over, his heavy boots hitting the asphalt with purpose. Without a word, the other 29 bikers followed. They moved in formation, a leather-clad army crossing the street. Parents who'd been ignoring Marcus suddenly panicked. Mothers grabbed their children. Fathers stepped protectively in front of their families. Someone screamed. Multiple people called 911. "Morning, ma'am," Bear said politely too. Principal Henderson, touching 2 fingers to his forehead in a mock salute. His voice was pleasant, but his eyes promised consequences. "Couldn't help but notice you assaulting a child." The principal's face drained of color. "This is school property. You're trespassing. I'm calling the police." "Already on their way," Bear smiled, showing teeth. "Good. They should see this. We'll wait." He pulled out his own phone. "In fact, I'm live streaming this for everyone to see." He turned the camera to Marcus. "Hey, buddy, what's your name?" Marcus, sir," the boy stammered, equal parts terrified and amazed by the giants surrounding him. "Marcus, I'm Bear. These are my friends. When's the last time you ate a real meal?" Marcus thought hard, his forehead wrinkling. 3 days ago. The church had spaghetti on Tuesday, but they said I can only come once a week now." Murmurs of anger rippled through the bikers. Phoenix knelt beside Marcus, her leather creaking. "Sweetie, where do you sleep?" "Different places," Marcus said quietly. "The park when it's nice, under the bridge when it rains. Sometimes the church steps, but the police make me move." "And you still do homework?" she asked gently. Marcus nodded proudly, showing her his papers. "Every night. I use the street light by the McDonald's. They have the brightest ones. Sometimes the workers give me old fries." Phoenix's eyes filled with tears behind her sunglasses. She looked up at the principal with pure hatred. "You're denying education to a baby who does homework under streetlights while hungry." "The school has policies," Principal Henderson started. "The school has federal laws to follow," Hammer interrupted, pulling off his riding gloves. "I spent 10 years as a family court judge. The McKinney-Vento Act specifically prohibits discrimination against homeless students. What you're doing isn't just cruel, it's illegal." The principal's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Behind her, teachers and staff had gathered at windows, many filming with their phones. Several looked ashamed. They'd known about Marcus but had been too afraid of Henderson to speak up. "Furthermore," Hammer continued, his courtroom voice returning, "physically assaulting a minor, especially one in a protected class, carries serious charges: battery, child endangerment, violation of civil rights. Should I continue?" 2 police cruisers arrived with sirens wailing. Officers Chen and Rodriguez stepped out, hands instinctively moving to their weapons when they saw 30 bikers surrounding a woman and child. Then Chen recognized Bear. "David, what's going on here?" Bear never took his eyes off the principal. "Officer Chen, this woman physically assaulted a 6-year-old homeless orphan and illegally denied him access to public education. We have video evidence and 30 witnesses." Officer Rodriguez, a father of 3, looked at Marcus, really looked at him. The boy's ribs showed through his thin shirt. His arms had the marks of sleeping on concrete. But his eyes still held hope. "Ma'am," Rodriguez said to the principal, "I'm going to need you to step back from the child." "This is ridiculous," Henderson screeched. "These bikers are the threat. Arrest them." "For what?" Chen asked. "Standing on a public sidewalk?" "Ma'am, I've received 16 911 calls in the last 5 minutes. 12 of them reported you assaulting a child. The other 4 were about bikers stopping to help him." What happens next will turn this entire school system upside down, reveal corruption nobody expected, and show why sometimes the roughest people have the purest hearts. Stay tuned to see what happens next. If you're enjoying the story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The principal made a fatal mistake. She lunged for Marcus again, trying to snatch his backpack. "This vagrant is trespassing with stolen school property." Bear's massive hand shot out, catching her wrist without touching her body. "Try that again," he growled. "Please, give me a reason." "Are you threatening me?" she shrieked. "No, ma'am. I'm promising you consequences if you touch that child again." Tank stepped forward, all 6'8" of him. "Boss, we got company." A news van screeched around the corner, then another. The live streams had gone viral. Justice for Marcus was already trending. Within minutes, reporters surrounded the scene. "I know who you are," Principal Henderson hissed at Bear. "David Mitchell, ex-convict, drug dealer. You think your opinion matters?" Bear smiled coldly. "Former drug dealer, current owner of 3 construction companies and 2 rehabilitation centers. I employ over 200 people, including 27 ex-felons who society threw away just like you're throwing away this boy." He raised his voice so the cameras could hear. "Yes, I went to prison. I did my time. But I learned something inside. Everyone deserves a second chance, especially kids who never got a first one." That's when a woman in an expensive suit pushed through the crowd. "What the hell is going on at my school?" "Mrs. Williams," Principal Henderson looked relieved. "Thank God, these thugs are disrupting everything." Janet Williams, president of the school board, ignored her. She walked straight to Marcus and knelt down. "Sweetheart, are you okay?" Marcus nodded bravely. "Yes, ma'am. I just want to go to class." "Have you been sleeping outside?" "Yes, ma'am." "How long?" "Since my mama went to heaven. 6 months." Janet Williams stood up slowly. The fury in her eyes made even the bikers step back. "Principal Henderson, you're suspended immediately pending investigation." "You can't do that," Henderson protested. "I can, and I just did. Officer Chen, I want her removed from school property." As the police escorted the principal away, Bear walked Marcus to the entrance. "Come on, buddy. Let's get you to class." But at the door, the vice principal stepped out. "I'm sorry, but I can't let him in. Without Principal Henderson's approval." "Are you serious right now?" Phoenix snarled. "I could lose my job," the woman whispered, clearly terrified but also ashamed. Bear pulled out his phone. "Then let's make sure everyone knows why." He turned to the cameras. "Riverside Elementary is so broken that even with their principal arrested, they won't let a homeless child attend class." Within seconds, his phone rang. Then another phone. And another. The story had exploded across social media. Parents who'd ignored Marcus were suddenly outraged, not at their own failure, but at the bad optics for their property values. Janet Williams took charge. "As board president, I'm overriding all previous decisions. Marcus, welcome to school," she glared at the vice principal. "And anyone who has a problem with that can find another job." Bear and 5 other bikers walked Marcus to his classroom. The hallways of Riverside Elementary fell silent as they passed. Teachers stared. Students pressed against doorways. The thunder of motorcycle boots on linoleum echoed like Judgment Day. Mrs. Thompson met them at her classroom door. The young teacher's eyes were red from crying. "Marcus, oh, sweetie, I've been so worried." "Principal Henderson wouldn't let me in," Marcus explained matter-of-factly, as if being homeless and rejected was just another part of life. "I know, baby. I tried to speak up, but—" She couldn't finish. The shame was too heavy. Bear studied her carefully. "You tried?" "I went to the superintendent last month. He said it wasn't his problem. I went to child services. They said he wasn't being abused, just homeless. I went to the media. Nobody cared about one homeless kid." "We care," Bear said simply. "What does he need?" Mrs. Thompson's professionalism cracked. "Everything. He needs everything. Food, clothes, supplies, stability. But mostly he needs to know someone gives a damn." Bear pulled out his wallet and handed her $500. "This covers immediate needs. Make a list of everything else." "I can't take your money," she protested weakly. "It's not for you. It's for him. And this is just the start." As the bikers filed out, something beautiful happened. Students began clapping. Just 1 or 2 at first, then entire classrooms. By the time they reached the exit, the whole school was applauding. They weren't clapping for the bikers, they were clapping for Marcus, the brave little boy who'd fought for his education. Outside, the media circus had grown. Bear lit a cigar and prepared for war. But this war wouldn't be fought with fists or weapons. It would be fought in boardrooms and courtrooms, with laws and leverage. "What now, boss?" Tank asked. "Now we attend that board meeting this afternoon." All of us. They won't let us all in, Hammer pointed out. Bear smiled. They will, if they want to avoid a riot. The emergency board meeting was held in the high school auditorium to accommodate the crowd. Over 200 bikers from multiple clubs had arrived. The Iron Wolves, Satan's Saints, Hell's Disciples, rivals who'd shed blood over territory, now stood united for a homeless child. Parents clutched their pearls and whispered about property values. Teachers sat together, some ashamed, others defiant. The media occupied an entire section, cameras rolling. Janet Williams called the meeting to order. We're here to address this morning's events and the systemic failures they represent. She played security footage that made the audience gasp. Not just that morning, but weeks of footage showing Marcus being turned away. The worst was a rainy night when he'd slept against the school door, hoping someone would let him in early. This child has been failed by every adult in this system, Janet declared, including me. I should have known. We all should have known. Bear stood when recognized. The auditorium fell silent. That boy's mother died of cancer 6 months ago. She was a single mom, worked 3 jobs, no insurance. She died in debt, leaving nothing but a promise from her son to get educated. He paused, letting his words hit home. Marcus kept that promise. Living on streets, eating from trash cans, dodging predators and police, he kept doing homework. He kept showing up. Even when you spit on him, he kept believing education would save him. His voice rose. And you tried to take that away because he was poor. That's not true, shouted a parent in designer clothes. We just want our children safe. From what? Phoenix stood up. From seeing poverty, from learning compassion. What exactly are you protecting them from? Mrs. Thompson asked to speak. Her voice trembled but carried. Marcus helps other students with math. He shares his snacks when he has any. Last week I saw him give his only pencil to another child. That dangerous homeless boy has more character than most adults in this room. One by one, teachers stood to testify. The art teacher showed Marcus's drawings, heartbreaking pictures of his mother as an angel, of himself sleeping under stars, of the school as a castle he couldn't enter. The librarian admitted finding him sleeping in the library, having crawled through a window. Instead of reporting it, she'd started leaving sandwiches. Then came the bombshell. The district's financial director, Mrs. Patterson, stood up with a box of documents. I've been investigating discrepancies for months. Principal Henderson has been embezzling funds meant for homeless student support. The room exploded. Parents shouted, bikers cursed. Janet Williams banged her gavel repeatedly. How much? Someone yelled. Over $200,000 in 3 years, Mrs. Patterson revealed. Money meant for free lunches, clothing vouchers, emergency housing assistance. She stole it all. Bear stood again. So you had money to help kids like Marcus and she stole it instead? It appears so, Janet Williams confirmed, her face grim. The police will handle the criminal investigation. But we need to address the immediate situation. The Iron Wolves want to donate $50,000 to establish a real homeless student program, Bear announced. But we want oversight. We want transparency. We want to make sure no child is ever turned away again. A parent sneered. Why should we trust drug-dealing bikers with our children's education? Tank started to rise, but Bear stopped him. Instead, Hammer stood. Because, ma'am, half of us were Marcus once, thrown away by society, written off. Some of us found salvation in brotherhood, some in bikes. But we all remember being that scared kid nobody wanted. He pulled off his vest, showing his judge's badge tattooed on his chest. I became a judge to help kids like Marcus, but the system is too broken. Sometimes it takes outlaws to deliver justice. This is ridiculous, another parent protested. These people are criminals. So is your principal, Phoenix shot back, but you trusted her because she wore nice clothes and spoke properly while stealing from babies. Janet Williams restored order. The board needs to vote on accepting the Iron Wolves donation and partnership. But Bear wasn't finished. There's more. We don't just want to donate, we want to buy the school. Stunned silence filled the auditorium. Even the bikers looked surprised. Bear had discussed this with his inner circle during the break, but most thought he was joking. That's impossible, Janet stammered. Schools aren't for sale. Everything's for sale at the right price, Bear said calmly. The Iron Wolves have been saving for years to build a community center. Instead, we'll buy this school and run it right. Same teachers who care, same students, but with a new mission, education for everyone, regardless of circumstances. You can't be serious, the district superintendent finally spoke up. The regulations alone. I have 3 lawyers in my club, Bear interrupted. 2 accountants, a former school administrator. We're not just thugs on bikes. We're a brotherhood that includes every profession. And we're dead serious. The room buzzed with speculation. Could bikers really buy a school? Was it legal? What would it mean for property values? But then a small voice cut through the chaos. Can I say something? Everyone turned. Marcus stood at the auditorium entrance, escorted by Officer Chen. The little boy walked to the podium, Officer Chen lifting him up so he could reach the microphone. My mom was real sick at the end, Marcus began, his small voice carrying enormous weight. But she made me promise to go to school every day. She said education was the only thing nobody could take away from me. He looked at Principal Henderson's empty chair. But they tried to take it away. Then he looked at the bikers. When nobody else would help me, they did. They didn't care that I was dirty or hungry. They just saw a kid who needed help. Tears rolled down his cheeks. I don't understand why having no home means I can't learn. I don't understand why being poor makes me dangerous. But I understand that these men and women, he pointed at the bikers, care more about me than people who look nice but have mean hearts. Not a sound in the auditorium. Even the reporters had stopped typing. If they buy the school, will they let kids like me come? Marcus asked Janet Williams. Yes, sweetheart, that would be their whole mission. Then I think you should let them, because they already showed they care about kids like me, and nobody else does. Marcus climbed down and walked to Bear, wrapping his thin arms around the big man's leg. Bear picked him up, holding him like the father he'd never had. I got you, little man, Bear whispered. Nobody's ever going to throw you out again. The vote was closer than it should have been, 4-3 in favor of considering the Iron Wolves' proposal, but it was enough to start the process. Over the next 3 months, the story became national news. The Iron Wolves proved they had the funds, years of legitimate business profits, charity poker runs, and donations from members who'd become successful. They hired the best education lawyers in the state. They presented a comprehensive plan that impressed even skeptics. Every morning, Iron Wolves members showed up at Riverside Elementary. They walked kids to class. They served breakfast from their bikes. They stood guard to make sure no child was turned away. Marcus rode to school on Bear's motorcycle, his face beaming with joy. The investigation into Principal Henderson revealed even worse corruption. She'd been taking bribes to admit certain students outside the district while denying places to poor children within it. She'd falsified test scores for donations. The embezzlement was just the tip of the iceberg. At her sentencing 6 months later, she got 7 years in prison. Marcus attended the hearing, sitting between Bear and Phoenix. When the judge asked if anyone wanted to make a victim impact statement, Marcus stood up. I forgive you, he told his former principal. My mom said holding hate in your heart makes you ugly inside. I don't want to be ugly inside. I hope you learn to be better. Even the judge wiped his eyes. The sale finalized 8 months after that morning confrontation. Riverside Elementary became Riverside Community Academy, the first biker-owned school in American history. The leather-clad board of directors included former felons, judges, teachers, and business owners, all united by their commitment to never let another child be thrown away. They kept every teacher who passed a simple test. Did you try to help Marcus when he was homeless? Those who had, even in small ways, stayed. Those who'd ignored him were offered generous severance packages to find work elsewhere. The transformation was immediate. Washing machines appeared so homeless students could clean their clothes. A food pantry opened for families in need. Social workers and counselors were hired. The breakfast program served anyone hungry, no questions asked. Test scores improved dramatically. Turns out, children learn better when they're not hungry, dirty, or afraid. Attendance hit record highs. The waiting list grew so long they had to expand, buying neighboring buildings. Bear personally drove Marcus to school every morning. The boy went from homeless to honor roll in one semester. He gained weight, grew inches, and smiled constantly. His artwork changed from angels and sadness to motorcycles and family. At the first-year celebration, Marcus gave a speech that went viral worldwide. When I had nothing, most people saw nothing. They looked through me like I was invisible. But the Iron Wolves saw a kid who needed help. They didn't just give me food or clothes or a place to sleep. They gave me hope. He looked at Bear in the front row. You saved my life. But more than that, you saved my mom's dream for me. She wanted me to be educated. You made that possible when everyone else said no. He paused, composing himself. Now, other kids like me have a chance. Kids who sleep outside. Kids who are hungry. Kids who don't have nice clothes. They all have a place here. Because sometimes your family isn't blood. It's whoever shows up when you need them most. The standing ovation lasted 10 minutes. Marcus lived with Officer Chen's family during the school year and spent summers with Bear, learning construction and life lessons. He graduated elementary school as valedictorian with a full scholarship to private middle school, courtesy of the Iron Wolves Education Fund. At graduation, he announced his career goal. I want to be a teacher so I can help kids like me. And maybe someday I'll run a school where every child is welcome, no matter what. 10 years later, Mr. Marcus Williams returned to Riverside Community Academy as a 5th grade teacher. The homeless boy who'd been physically thrown out now held the keys. On his first day, 30 aging bikers roared into the parking lot to see him off. "You done good, kid," Bear said, his gray beard unable to hide his proud smile. "I learned from the best," Marcus replied. "You taught me that sometimes the people who look the scariest have the biggest hearts, and that everyone deserves a chance to learn." As Marcus walked into the school, he passed a new student, a little girl with dirty clothes and hungry eyes. He knelt down to her level. "Hi, I'm Mr. Williams. Are you hungry? We have breakfast. Are your clothes dirty? We have washers. Are you scared? Don't be. This is a place where every child matters." The little girl's eyes widened with hope, the same hope Bear had given Marcus all those years ago. The cycle continued, because that's what real change looks like. Not grand gestures or viral moments, but people choosing to see value in those society discards. The Iron Wolves didn't just save Marcus, they saved every child who came after him. And Principal Henderson's former office? It became a food pantry. Because the best revenge against cruelty is kindness, and the best response to exclusion is radical inclusion. Sometimes heroes wear capes, sometimes they wear leather and ride Harleys, and sometimes they're 6-year-old boys who refuse to give up on their education no matter how many times they're pushed down. But always, always, they're the ones who stop when everyone else drives by. Thank you for watching this incredible true story. Please subscribe to our channel and click on one of the 2 amazing stories on your screen right now. Tomorrow's story will give you chills.